Enterprise, a partnership between my company, Digital Venture Partners, and Black Enterprise, where every week I have a conversation with a prominent Black cannabis executive that I know, respect, or admire, who I feel like is representing our culture in the right way and creating inroads for more of us to come into the space and find success. So today with me, I have Torren Cooke, founder of Cannaquake. And he's someone who I've just been recently introduced to, but as I was telling you before our conversation, I really respect and admire how you brand your company, how you figured out how to make something real and tangible and interactive. So I'm really excited to have you on to share your perspective as an entrepreneur, bro.
Appreciate you, boss. Definitely. It's always a honor being invited on these platforms and saying my little piece.
Of course, bro. So before we hop into like the whole cannabis overview and just the state of our industry, I would love to get your professional background prior to you jumping into the space.
Prior to me jumping into the space, like as in total or just like as of me being a licensed entity?
Whatever one makes sense, even if you were operating in the traditional market or if you were doing
Okay.
something else before you hopped into space, like where did you just learn, just how to be a
Um,
business person and, all of that.
I've honestly always been this business person since I was a kid. I always understood, what nice things were and what I wanted, and not necessarily always material things, but just the peace of mind of being comfortable and not worrying about certain things. So I was always the kid. I used to make blank CDs for kids when like we first all got access to computers. I used to make CDs. I used to sell candy. I used to do whatever. Me and a friend, we would fix Xboxes when they first started getting the like red rings. So like I was always that kid who always found a way to make something out of nothing. And then after high school, got on my feet and I ventured into cultivating. I started growing. Come from the old school days of blowing out houses, sleeping in the living room, and just going from there. Started to provide to certain clubs under 215, and once you do that for a while, I kind of built a rapport, and then that's when I eventually stepped into the retail world of cannabis under 215, and then I kind of just I see jobs as people are paying you to learn. So I basically soaked up as much game as I could, and I also utilized a lot of the game I already had, and that allowed me to move up to a manager spot. Started, paying attention more there, and at some point, I just realized it was time to, spread my wings on my own.
Of course, and you have an interesting perspective as someone who was a part of the culture, and then as it's starting to transition into a more traditional industry, you see both sides of it. Like, what was that experience for you being somebody who is seeing, it go from something that was just been completely illegal, something that you see people's lives get ruined around, to where now it's like you can turn on MSNBC and people talk so excitedly about cannabis.
It's still one of those things where I find myself like wanting to look around, like, is this really going on right now? Is this real? Like, you ever see someone like get ready to like jump inside of a double dutch thing, and they're kind of like back and forth, like, do I want to stay on this side? Do I want to stay on this side? You don't really know, but once you kind of hop in, you find that good rhythm, and you kind of get used to it. But it's definitely interesting still, just seeing how things have changed with a complete 360 and how they change on the day to day basis still to this day, really.
So, you are in the mecca of cannabis culture, which is California. And I think I don't think I know it's a huge misconception around the idea of just starting and, more importantly, sustaining a brand. Like, what advice do you give to people who come up to you and they're like, man, I want to get into the cannabis space. I want to start a brand. I want to start a this or that. What is some of the information you feel like needs to be known before you jump into it?
I have two words. You have to be consistent. Consistency is number one. You want to be consistent with something. Me personally, I like to really stick with that with the quality. And then you want to be uniform. You want to be able to have someone, you might have six different products. You want someone to see any one of those six and know what brand it is. You want to make sure things look uniform. If we see a logo that's a Gap logo, we don't have to see the Gap. We can see that blue square and know that that's Gap. You know, so it's just you want to make sure you're identifiable in some ways across the board, no matter what.
Okay. And You say that because before we hopped on, I was telling you how much I admire just how you put your brand together, just the packaging, and being in such a young legal industry, we don't see that well yet. You know, we're kind of used to the brands that have outlasted everyone being on the shelves, to where in cannabis you can kind of see everybody try, and then you just kind of see what sticks. Um, in California, how have you found to like separate yourself as a brand? Because you're not even a dope black brand. Like, how they say, oh, this is a social equity brand or this is a minority brand. Like, I feel like your company can stand next to any company on the shelves. Like, how do you figure out how to really have that quality control as a brand?
I I'm one of the main heads. I'm really the only worker right now. So anything that I choose goes through my eyes. I am very picky myself. Like I said, I've been growing before I was growing my hair, and like I'm just very picky, and I make sure I look at every corner that there is. I don't like to leave a stone unturned when it comes to anything that has to do with the company, because rather than putting Cannaquake on the bag, like I feel as though it's my name on the bag. So I always want to make sure that it's always to my standards, and I'm never gonna undercut that to try to undercut a price. It's just not worth it. Give me 1 second. Yo, no, and yeah, just really just making sure I'm hands on, and really being in every process of the logistics.
Okay, so when we talk about like the logistics and just the infrastructure of your company, you don't have to go too deep because a lot of people may not understand it, but like how do you even structure yourself to operate as a cannabis company in California? Be that through, cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, retail. Like, what's kind of the things you have to have in place to be able to even get on the shelf in California?
One is your paperwork. You got to have all your paperwork in order. Not only is there a state license, there's a city license, there's or a city permit, there's your sales tax. You have to have a seller's permit as well. To get a bunch of those, you have to go through your inspections and have all your inspections signed off through fire, building and plant planning, everything. So you literally got to dot all your I's, cross all your T's before you can even go into a storefront. Once you hit a storefront, they're going to ask you for all the information, W-9, seller's permit, license, and all that. And that's going to be the main step. And once you get all that covered, you'll be good to go. And with the last question too, like my main thing is I never wanted to market myself as a black brand. Not saying that's not important. I just wanted folks to understand that the quality and the thought process behind the brand, and that should push it forward, and not just the fact that I'm a dope black brand in equity. It's a great thing, but it's one of those where I feel as though when people do that, sometimes they tend to kind of veer away from the quality of the brand and all of the products. And then as far as the Instagram, it's like presentation is key. Presentation is always number one. It's always key. You want to see something and not have to try to discern what is what and what is where. You should be able to see it and be able to feel comfortable with it all the way through. And I've just always been big on presentation myself. It's like checking out a restaurant website. If the website doesn't look appeasing to you, you're not going to want to eat the food. So I try to keep everything as appealing as I can.
Okay, cool. And I know some of our viewers are going to be upset with me if I don't kind of drill into this something that you mentioned earlier. As a cultivator, like what was that process for you? Like how long did it take you to learn and get proficient at being able to grow cannabis? Because now a lot of people are saying, "Oh, I want to open a grow. I want to open my own facility." Like, what's that process as someone who's actually gone through it?
Everybody who asks me like what's the best teacher, and I tell them like you can get the Grow Bible, you can get the marijuana handbook, like there's a lot of them, but at the end of the day the best teacher is going to be the dirt or whatever medium that you choose to cultivate with. But it's one of those where you're going to learn something new every single run. I probably wasn't dialed in myself as a grower to where I felt comfortable where I could give someone a recipe and just leave until about my third to fourth run. And it's all about time. It's literally about being in there every day in the books. It's one of those where you can only get so much from a cliff note or on the back cover of the book versus being in the book every day, every single page. And I just tell folks, if you really want to do it, like, be ready to sacrifice your time. Your time is going to be delegated to those plants, and it should only be delegated to those plants.
Okay, cool. And then kind of going back to another aspect of your business, you really figured out how to continue to grow throughout COVID. And it feels like at this point it's never going to end. Like, what was some of the adjustments you had to make once COVID hit, as far as whether that's your marketing, your outreach? Like, what were some of the things you learned over the past 12 months as we've been kind of living through this?
When COVID first reared its head, um, I believe everyone kind of like stepped back and kind of wanted to see how everything was going, and things slowed down for everyone, which kind of increased the prices as well. So a lot of people stepped back and kind of like took a few months off, but it was one of those where I just doubled down on the work, and I actually like probably increased my outreach by like 50 to 80%. It really was just long days and mornings of calls, emails, reaching out from all the way up to Humboldt to all the way down south. And it was just about connecting all those dots. And once I ended up connecting those dots, since a lot of competition, quote unquote, were taking the break, I wasn't. And that kind of gave me a head start, because my dots connected, I'd say about 2-3 months before a lot of others did. And I was able to kind of get that steam rolling. And my whole thought process is, as long as I can keep the steam rolling in such a slow time, it's going to put me at a little step above everyone else once they finally get their train back on the rails.
And moving forward, like into 2021, you had great success last year. You have the thing that is the hardest and most expensive to get, which is, I think, brand respect, right? And I think, you know, moving forward, like, what do you feel like is the next thing you want to accomplish for your company?
My next thing that I want to accomplish is I want to become multi-state. Working with a couple partnerships and deals right now. Hopefully they can work out. But if not, that's still going to be on the forefront of my post-it note list. I always tell folks I have like a mental chalkboard of like post-it notes in my head, and like when I know the time's been long enough, there's like a red light going off, like, you need to take care of this. It's about that time. So definitely want to create, become multi-state. I want to up my store list. I just want to take over California and then take over whatever state is next. Honestly,
Man, if you can make it in California, you can make it anywhere, especially in cannabis. Uh, what so when people say, I want to start my brand, I want to get into more stores, like, what's that process for, when you say, okay, I want to go from just NorCal, like you said, down to Southern California, or in cities or metropolitan areas you may not be at? What's that process of really figuring out, how do I get on more shelves?
you have to make the outreach personal. You can send out as many emails as you can, but let's be honest, most of the license holders' emails and phone numbers are public information. So we're all getting bombarded with calls from labs, from software companies, from all type of stuff. So most emails, unfortunately, are going to get looked over. And if they don't have a personal connection with you, they're not really looking out for it. So I tell folks, if you want to really get into more stores, your outreach is going to have to be personal. You're going to have to go to the stores yourself and make yourself known. And same thing I did before I touched SoCal. I just went down and store after store, day in, day out, store after store. See if you can speak to the buyer, set an appointment. You really have to make sure that you're literally kicking down the doors. Every dispensary better have a foot mark on it, no matter what. And that's what it comes down to. And then from there, that's how you build the rapport with the buyer and or staff. And then that's how you gain a little bit more reputation. Yeah, you may or may not have to do certain things that you wouldn't normally do to get into new territories. But once your product hits a shelf and it moves, that's when you gain that respect as a brand. And then most of those issues like terms or lower prices will fade away once they really become confident in your brand.
Of course, man. And before I let you go, I want to ask you this question, because I know you get posed with it as much as I do, especially as like more states like New Jersey and New York come on board, what advice would you give to that person who's seeing this news pop up on their phone that their state or their region is starting to come on board in cannabis, and they want to figure out how they can involve themselves or take that step into the space?
Best advice I've have, I say this all the time too, is that yes, your state may be going legal, but your city and or county are the ones who are going to essentially call the shots for your city and county. So I tell people, make yourself known at City Hall. Find out what building is specifically in control of cannabis in California, or in Oakland, it's the special permits office. And then from there, you make yourself known. You ask these people what is needed from XYZ, and then they may or may not know. But once it comes into play, they'll know who needs that information. They'll already have your email. They already know your name. They already know you by face. So they'll be more privy to give you more information as they get it, versus just a random Joe Schmo off the street emailing them who never popped in, never shook a hand, never introduced themselves. So you want to have a great rapport with whoever is in charge of your permitting in your city and or county. And state doesn't hurt as well, but depending on where the state office is, that may be hard for you. But you just want to keep that rapport so they know who you are, and things will be a lot easier for you.
Man, you're one of the old schools in the sense of like just hand to hand in it. At the end of the day, regardless of technology and money and social media, sometimes you just gotta show up and shake somebody's hand, bro. So
That is honestly the only way to get things done in this business. Personally, you can email and talk over the phone as long as you want, but if in-person meeting is going to get your thoughts across so much smoother.
yeah, of course, bro. And I definitely appreciate your time and your insight. I would love for you to leave our viewers with where they could follow you and your company on social media, or if they have any questions, if they want to reach out to you directly.
Yeah, you can reach out to me directly. I'm always on my phone. The Instagram for the brand is Cannaquake. So at CANNAQUAKE. And then yeah, you can hit me on there, ask me any questions. I'm a wealth of information. And yeah, no
Hey, much
issues.
appreciated, bro. I look forward to hearing more about your story, and I can't wait to meet you in person one day, bro.
Likewise, bro. Appreciate you for having me. Shout out to Ryan. Thank you guys. I'm sure we'll be all meeting up soon at one point.